A little bit of motor maintenance, disassembly. I'll give you a few tips. So this is from a sewing machine. It's an internal motor. And be aware that the motor will stay there. It does have a bracket. And you want to mark the bolt's position on the bracket because it also sets the tension of the belt. So you really need to put the bolts at the same position when you remove the bracket. The bolts that hold the bracket and also the bolts that hold the motor on the bracket. It's important. Also, mind you, the motor will stay in there. The cable may go inside and come from underneath, and underneath there may be an attachment for the cable. So once you remove the cable, the motor bracket, it may be necessary to flip the machine to detach any connections that holds the actual cable onto the machine body underneath. Now, my idea for this removal and disassembly is first, the commuter was, I'll show you in a moment, was very black. And see, this area here is where the brushes are running, not this one. This one was the new one. If you want, it was looking like this. The area for the brushes were blackened. You will see this will cause a very remarkable decrease in sewing speed. So the machine speed can be much lower because of either smear from actual oil on the bushings, or it could really be just wear on this commuter side. And you can fix that to bring back the speed of the machine to normal. Of course, I'm assuming that the rest of the mechanical parts of the machine are moving freely. So this is one of the reasons. Bring back the speed of the machine to normal. The second one is make sure it's the bushings, so you have two bushings here, front and rear, are well lubricated, and maybe just inspect their condition. This is a motor that comes from, again, it's a sewing machine, and I could find the date of at least the motor. I guess the sewing machine, it's the same. It's 72 that you see in there. Actually, it's being stamped on both sides. The last digit 72, so 50 years old machine. Want to mention first that these motors here, if you look at the front of the cover, you will see a lubrication hole. It looks tiny. You will have screws here and there. It will look like this. This tiny hole, it's a lubrication hole. You have one lubrication hole for the rear bushing and one lubrication hole for the front bushing. And perhaps you already understand that when the motor is inserted inside the machine, if it's internal, you will only have access to one of the two holes. So you will only be able to lubricate one of the two bushings, but there are two bushings. So to lubricate both of them, you need to remove the motor from the machine entirely. That's how it goes. This is again the hole on the other side. Obviously is going to be upside down. I've seen on the internet people using literally a syringe, like a medical syringe with tiny needle, because this hole, you can tell, it's very thin. You just put a droplet, and by gravity is going to be upside down. By gravity is going to leak inside. I'll show you. There is no wick on these later models from 60s, 70s, perhaps up into the 80s. I couldn't find really good information what kind of oil, so I'm going to assume you can use regular saving oil. Some people say to use engine oil for cars, but a very low cold grade, if you want, 0W, such as 0W30. I think Castrol makes I suggest a synthetic, or actually 0W is going to be synthetic anyway. So make sure you get that grade. Let's first, I'm going to talk about several things. I'm going also to suggest how to remove this kind of plug for the cable, which could be a trouble. I'm going to talk about the small I don't know how to call this kind of washers, screws, and so on. But let's just finish perhaps with this lubricating point. I would say at least once a year you need to put a droplet of oil. Now, if your machine is very old, it's a difficult thing to say. You don't know what the previous owner did on it. Was it lubricated recently or not? If it's dry, you may need actually to put more oil in there. But if you put more oil, it's going to get to the commutator, it's going to create a varnish and slow down the speed. So it's difficult to say. If you manage to remove the machine, you are going to find those red washers here, and mine were wet. This also keep the oil on them. So is to say, if you find them wet, then it must say that there is already enough oil. If they are dry, and by the way, when you remove them, they will dry in the air, so you need to lubricate them again. Notice there is a black one, and I found out that the black one appears, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, let me just remember how it was on the other side. So yes, the black one appears to be on the side of the motor, then the red ones appears to be towards the, if you want, towards the cover or towards the bushing. So when I say bushing, it's actually simply not a ball bearing, sorry. The space is too small to put ball bearings, hard to pronounce it. It literally is a sleeve that's sliding onto the shaft, and that's it. It's just metal on metal. That's why it needs lubrication. And if I would, I'm not sure if the camera will really show you, but you see kind of I don't know, it's the shyness is not uniform. There is somewhere, it's not bad on this unit, but it has to be lubricated. And notice that that small hole on the outside corresponds this the kind of yellow, if you want, one thing. This is I'm not sure if it's really rubber. It's a sponge or something, but it has kind of consistency of a sponge. So when you put that droplet or drop of oil, it's going to soak this sponge, and the sponge will keep that oil for a long time, and is going to leak onto the bushing. But again, too much is going to cause you problems. So this is for the lubrication part. Again, you need to put it on both sides. Let's just move on. And by the way, work carefully, move carefully. This plate here has several tiny wires. These are really small wires that are soldered, but it's old, so do not move this plate too long. Let's just perhaps go right away to the disassembly part. So you will need first to remove the pulley. This is the pulley while the belt is running, and the pulley will have a tiny screw, and you notice the shaft is K'd, which means on one side you have a flat portion, flat area. That's where the screw it's locking, so as to prevent the pulley from rotating on the shaft. You need to make sure you pull it all the way in. Maybe take a picture to see how far it goes in first place. In any case, the belt must be aligned, so it must not be running offset. Now I had a lot of trouble removing this screw. It's very, very tiny. I actually did use my wrench. I do have automotive tools, and I have an adapter. It's a what it says 1/4 inch, and this adapter I could use it to put 1 bit for a screwdriver. It's actually, I had to file it down to make it more sharp, and actually even on the sides to make it smaller to fit the screw, because the screw was very tight. It's normal thread screwing, is normal rotation thread, but it was very stuck. So you really need to match perfectly the tool that you have, the tip, because you can tell I almost rounded here. The screw is not that strong, but it's tight in there because of time and because the oil has hardened it on it. It's difficult. I found it difficult to remove this thing. You may want to start with this guy, and if it doesn't work for you, then just, well, call it a day. Now there are screws in there. There's like 2 rods that keep the two covers together. So maybe just remember where the bolts are. On my unit, I needed, I had to use 7mm wrench actually. Maybe you can use pliers, but it's not ideal. Inside you have this kind of, there is different components. I'll let you see with your own unit. It's too difficult for me to film all the details. So those 2 long rods will get through here. Those if you want, those kind of sleeves are in the middle to keep the plate in place. Then you have a screw, a small what is that again? My English is failing on me. These nuts, you have a nut that keeps the plate, then you have another nut that keeps the cover, and then you have another nut that keeps the motor on that bracket, big bracket. So there's kind of a 3 nuts. Just remember which one goes where. And I think that's pretty much it. Okay, let's just talk about, I'll go to the commuter in a moment. Let's just talk about these weird connectors, plugs. Let's just that supposedly secure the cable onto the case, onto the housing if you want. These usually will just have kind of a clip here, and this is used only to clamp the cable, not to clamp it on the cover, just to clamp the cable. And you will notice at some point the cable is deformed because of that clamp. You will need to put it back at the same place here, just adjust it correctly into that plug, so you don't crimp the cable at another location. So this crimps the cable first. It locks like this, and actually it opens on one side, so it can receive the cable through one side here. There's like a latch on the other side, so it crimps the cable, and then it's inserted in there. It does kind of have a yes, on the side here it has a slight bump that's securing it on the case. It's not too hard to remove, but what you want to do, the way to remove these things, do not unclamp it. Do not try to unclamp it from the cable. Just keep it tight like this, like you see. And what I did is I did use a cutting pliers, which are thin. So it's not a regular pliers. And I actually just kind of, again, without unclamping it, I just slide it right here underneath the tip. So where it stays out of the cover, kind of slide in there and just wiggle it and pop it from there. It's going to pull the cable a bit with it. Once it's out, only once it's out from the cover, only then you can open it and just remove it from the cable. That's how it works. Hopefully I'm clear on this. Don't lose it. It's important because it holds the cable really attached there, so you don't pull on the cable and disconnect cables, and you will even get an electrical shock if the cables become unsoldered and touch the casing. Anyhow, so one last thing is that you notice I did remove first the cover on the pulley side, and it did slide. Do not, I repeat, do not pull on this shaft, because it can damage inside the motor and also can break the wires. Do never pull on the shaft. Remove that pulley, slide off the cover, remove, obviously detach the cable. Once you get in there, you notice that this other part on the last half of the cover will feel stuck inside, and that's because it has a big magnet. And what I did here, I just grabbed a knife, just regular knife with a fairly sharp tip. And what I did, I kind of went on the side by alternance, and I just inserted slightly the tip, and I just kind of lifted like this, just slightly lifted the tip, and it caused the big piece to slightly move out on one side. Then I went on the other side, and I did repeat the same movement, just prying it out gently like this, one side at a time, little by little, I repeat. Again, do not pull on the shaft, and at some point the thing will come out. What I suggest is keep it upside like this, and the same for the other side. When you remove the cover, keep it outside so you don't drop those tiny washers, so you can actually, you will recover them from the shaft. If you incline it, the washer will come down, you may even damage them, so just be careful. So again, keep it like this, and let's try to, oops, camera, it's bent a bit. Let's try just to lift. At this point it's free, but I'm telling you, it's going to look completely stuck. Okay, so the shaft comes out, and let me see, I'm not sure if it's I'm doing this live on camera. I'm not sure if this is stuck in there. Okay, it's just that the shaft it's inserted into the bushing, and by the way, the bushing does have a rotation to it. It can rotate, so don't worry about the rotation part. Okay, so this is how it looks, and you notice I do have a couple of those red washer, what you call it, a few got stuck in there. And let me just see if that the black one. I'm curious, where is the black one? I think it's on the motor side. Is there one of them? Yes, so it appears to be a black one on the motor side, and there's like 4 or 5 towards the bushing itself, and notice they are wet from oil. So that's interesting. Okay, so this is the other bushing. If you want, I'm going to put this on the side, and you got the commuter. Okay, so let's just look at the commuter. And by the way, when I did pull on the commuter, careful with this these small washers. I'm not sure what the name is. It's better to remove them because they can just slide off from there. I'm going to do it off camera because don't just grab them like this. It's really fragile, and you want to kind of maybe get a blade and push them away gently all around. Just carefully this one. Maybe just tap on. Let's see. No, it doesn't come out. It's stuck with all. Anyhow, so this is the commuter and the I don't know, the wiring stuff. And I wanted to say that these are the 2 brushes, and when you put the thing back in place on this unit, it's easy just to push them with your finger, move them back in their case. Normally, oops, unless the spring is fully coming out, shouldn't be. It's not a big deal, don't worry. Okay, that's a spring. Now, what is really important, I mean, it's critical, is to notice the shape of the tip of the brushes that is running against the commuter. The shape has an angle, and that angle must match the circle of the commuter. So you absolutely must match them when you put back in place. That's it for them to make absolutely full contact in between them. If you put it like this is the wrong way. You can see by what you see behind the bush. It is not going to work at all. Make sure you put it like this. Now, my suggestion is to clean with alcohol the tip here. I think alcohol should be plenty enough for on the bush side. Just get isopropyl alcohol. On the commuter side is going to be more difficult. I did have to use a very, and I repeat, a very fine grit sandpaper. This is about 600 or 1000 grit. Do not use a rougher or a coarser grit because you are going to scratch the surface here of the copper, and it's not going to make perfect electrical contact. It's not going to transmit enough current between the brushes and commutator, and is not going to spin at good speed. That's very important. I would suggest, I'm just having this on hand, but I suggest get one of those steel, I think it's called steel wool sponges or something like this. It's just like a mesh with very fine steel threads to them. It's like a compact mesh, and that's perfect to just brush the surface here to make it shiny again. And you notice I did manage to make this one shiny. Look how dark it was before from oil being cooked here. So this is not good. If you find a very smooth surface like mine, just get that sponge, steel sponge, and just wipe it. Careful not to hook it on this and pull some wire in here, so not to damage things. Now, if you find it really scored, then get one of these very fine grit sandpaper, and just make sure you do it in a way to make a uniform sanding on the surface here until you get a very smooth surface. But it's important to be uniform. If you just sand more on one side and less on one side, the brushes is not going again to make proper contact, and it's going to have alternating speed or lower speed. So this is the maintenance for this commuter, and this is going to improve the speed on the machine assuming again the rest of the mechanical parts of the machine are not stuck, are not dragging, don't have wear, are properly lubricated. When you turn the hand well by hand, if it feels smooth and the speed of the sieving is still not high enough to your judgment, then the problem is with these contacts here. And this is very is basically one of the main problems with sieving machines. Okay, so maybe do a test like this to see if it's really smooth, and make sure, again, critical to put the shape when you put it back in that piece that holds the brushes, to really put the shape along the shape of the commuter. Absolutely essential. That's it. I think I'm done. Hopefully, usually I forget things, but I don't think I'm impressed by myself, honestly, so to speak. I don't think I did forget anything. Careful with the brushes. I think maybe you want to approximate a little bit the length of the brush. Sometimes, obviously, these brushes will wear off. Sometimes you can find replacements, but as you can tell, you need to get the right spring. Usually the sizes are correct, but it's graphite as far as I know. You may want to do a test. See, it's difficult to evaluate the length, if the length of the brush is still enough. But what you want to do is just try to imagine that the let's try to put it back correctly in place, that the commuter is here, sitting here in place of your finger, and just try to put your finger at the same position as the surface of commuter. Usually I think it's going to be very close like this, and just let the brush come out a bit. Feel if there's still some pressure from it, and also if there is still material coming out. If you see that, I think it's still enough brush and should be working for a while. These are not really wearing that fast. They should be last for quite a few times. Okay, again, careful with this plate. Don't break any of those connections. And yeah, when you put it back in place, make sure you align. You notice this is the crimped side. When you put it back into the half case, make sure you just align this with the hole. So the hole and the crimped side must come side by side, so you put them back in place correctly. Okay, my brushes are kind of running away from me at this point. Okay, hopefully this helps you. Is it an easy job? I don't know. I don't know how to say it. I think you need to be really careful with details, with tiny parts that are going to drop from there, so don't lose them. Make sure you put all the nuts in place or the washers in place. Take pictures so you know this. For instance, these washers here are locking type washer. They go at a certain position. I did have like 2 different types of washers outside the motor, so you really need to remember which part goes where. As long as you are careful, I think, and also as long as you can undo this tricky screw on the pulley, which was really, I mean, I thought at some point I'm not going to be able to do it. So you get the point. By the way, this is kind of a cooling fan from the motor. Remember how the motor goes in there, which way, which half of the case goes first into the machine. So the orientation of the motor, obviously the pulley is going to be out. And as long as you can do this, I think it's doable. Depends on your skills at some point. Don't forget to lubricate those bushings, and you should be having a motor. I think you can bring a motor really back, not just to life, but back to almost new operating condition, which is going to improve the operation of the machine. Thanks for watching.